Don't grow a beard unless that suits you.
We're talking about five-a-side players who played as ringers. When you stopped playing, did you play?
Do you think I could play as a ringer? Oh, the call weren't big enough for me.
Footballer. He played against Tarky 3 years ago.
Not when he was here, by the way.
So I looked in thinking, really? This could be interesting. I was actually thinking, fine.
Yeah.
No, I definitely don't. I don't play anymore.
But did you, when you started?
I didn't play when I was playing. I wasn't that good when they told me I was good.
Did you play at all after you stopped playing, though, or not?
No, I've never played since. Literally never played a game since. No. 20 years of playing, well, professionally. Arthritic toes as well. I've got arthritic toe bits.
Didn't you retire after?
Well, some people said I retired when I hadn't retired, if you know what I mean. So I'm not sure that was a compliment. But, no, never played a game since. No desire to play a game. Love what I do. Love watching others, but no desire to play. And arthritic toes as well, which is not. Pardon? No. I joined in a couple of times when I was a youth team coach, but that was only because we had one youth team keeper. So I used to go as rush goalie back in the day, you know what I mean? It wasn't ideal in a professional football club, but I was decent, to be fair. Still reading it, still picking it up, playing like I used to.
Good with your hand?
Either foot.
Good with your hand?
No, just edit. Anyway, enough nonsense. Yeah. Right,
sorry. Serious business. Team news first. Johan, what's the sort of update on him? Has he got any chance this weekend?
Yeah. He's had a good few days on the grass. He's been with us on the grass today. So providing there's no reaction overnight, he'd certainly be back in the thinking. GK's got a tight hamstring, so that might naturally work out depending. We're waiting for more news tomorrow morning. We'll give it a sort of 24-hour window to settle down. He was training today, but he just complained a little bit of a tight hamstring. Ben Mee is a big doubt. I don't think he'll make tomorrow. He could be a couple of weeks. We'll see yet. Or a few weeks. He's got a stress reaction at the bottom of his shin, sort of as it attaches to the ankle. He's had something similar last season. It cost him a few games. So we're just going to have to monitor that, and see how that settles down. And beyond that, Scott Arfield, not quite. He's back on the grass. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Ben's situation, a different leg to last season, but similar injury.
Yeah. Just a stress response to the workload, and it gets quite sore around the bottom of the ankle, sort of as it attaches to the shin. So it's something that he's had before last season. So we'll see how quickly that settles down.
Well, I guess the one thing you've got is depth, and you've got points on the board, so it's not. It's not a tragedy, it's not an emergency.
No. And I think, Kevin Long's come in earlier in the season, done very well. I thought he was very, very good at Watford last week. And I've said many times, we believe in the squad. It's not just the 11 we put out there. We believe in the whole squad. And I think it's a double-edged sword. You don't want to lose the players who've been playing well and moulded, if you like, into the team and the Premier League, more so year on year. But equally, it's good for the players who are so diligent with their profession. And Kevin Long's certainly one of them. So he gets another chance to play games, which he's doing at the moment.
Is there a talent to keeping those people happy when you're not playing them, though?
Yeah, of course. I have total respect for the players. In fact, often more respect in the sense for the players that are not playing, because it's very difficult. I played long enough to know that you want to play. You work all week. Your thirst is to play, the desire to play, to feel part of the actual group rather than being on the periphery of things. So, my professional respect goes out to them who are not playing regular, because it's very difficult to stay tuned in. But we've all seen the payback for these lads here. The obvious ones this season have been Tarky and Popey, who have been well documented. Their professional standards have been so strong that when they've had a chance, they've really, really performed. So I think there's a few good markers for the players here. And Long is certainly in that group as well.
And when we try and get some context of what this club's achieving, are you surprised by what the group's achieved so quickly? I know you've been asked similar questions all throughout the last week.
But I think and I've always been honest. I think, you start a season, and I did feel this pre-season when we signed players, we lost players, but we signed players. I did like the look of the squad, yet again, a bit more strength in depth and a bit more of a rounded looking squad going into the season. No guarantees to that, because we know how tough the Premier League is, but you can only go on what you're seeing and what you're feeling. So I thought we could be slightly better off. Then again, you look at the fixtures, the early fixtures, and you think, well, it's a tough run, particularly away from home. We got good points on the board. More flexible squad as well, tactically. So I thought we could change the way we played slightly, which has worked mostly. But to be honest and say that, we'd be sitting here seventh, talking about Europe, talking about how many more points we can get, etc., etc. Then no, I don't think, I think it'd be dishonest to say that, oh yeah, I thought we'd be sitting there having that conversation. But did I think we'd be better off than last year? Well, my feeling, the staff's feeling was, yes, we could be better off and stronger than we were last year.
But that flexibility in tactics you talk about, it's not just having a plan B now, though, is it? You've got plan C, D. Within games, you could change.
The good thing I think with my belief in mixed football is that you can adapt and you can flex it, and I think that's a good weapon to have. Lots of very, very high quality Premier League teams. Some have a really an obvious format, only in that tactical sense. That doesn't mean they're easy to play against, by the way. But they have a style of play and a way of playing that is quite a regular pattern that we've seen before. But then, of course, they have high quality players who deliver it. I think we've had to be flexible, we've had to adapt, and I think we continue to do so. For one, I think it's important for my group to allow them the best chance to play and the best chance to be successful. And I do believe in it. I think the flexibility of how a team plays, the flexibility of its tactical shape, is a good weapon to have.
Has their decision-making on and off the pitch improved as well? Because we talked to a couple of players this week who talked about a meeting when you're going through your run. I think you had your 6 draws, but no wins in 12, and then there's almost a feeling that you could go again, or you could settle for just survival. And I think the players decided to go again. Is that a sign that there's a greater kind of responsibility and maturity amongst them?
Well, I think the added maturity is a key thing. I think experience at this level is really important, and some you can buy in and you can bring in, and some is how players mature into it. And I think there's been good signs of that. Different players adapting to the challenge. The longer you stay in there, yet again, no guarantees, but I think the players do get a bit wiser. Not just the technical and tactical demands, or even the physical, but the whole thing, what the Premier League is, the media, the feel around Premier League games, particularly going away. Home's home for a reason. It's familiar, everyone feels good about playing at home, or most teams. Obviously, there's a few had tough times at home, but generally speaking, going away can be a different, it's a different feeling. And I think the more experience you get at that, the more you sort of grow into it. And I think our players have done that this season, and it has to be respected, because there are no guarantees that takes care of itself for the future. But I do think there's players here who have matured this season and continue to do so.
Chris and Ashley have played well. They've played well throughout the season, but together recently. Did you realise that was something that back in their DNA when they played at Brighton, or could you recognise?
Well, no,
because I know that Sam started the season, didn't he?
Yeah.
Chris had injuries.
Well, it wasn't just down to them playing at Brighton.
No, I know, but could you see the hallmarks of them playing together based on the way they're playing now, or is that just something that
No, I think sometimes you trust what you see in training and the work you do in training, the connections that players make. When the whistle blows out, it's still, there's no guarantee. You've got to look at the players now, how they bond together, how they work together, the different skills they have. A lot was made of 4-4-2 over the last few years with myself. I always said I think it's important to know what suits the players. I think this year we've been way more flexible with that and different options we've had. And yet again, at the moment, or the last few games, we've added the 2 in up front again, whether it be from the bench or whether it be to start. So I think it just gives us another angle, and yet again, another flexible view of what we're trying to achieve as a side, really.
And do those 3 strikers, as they are, and also Naki obviously there, but do they get the credit they deserve, or does it not matter?
I don't think it matters. I don't think they're too worried about it. I think they enjoy playing. I think they want to keep playing. They want to keep scoring goals. That's the main focus. It never struck me as being too thirsty for pats on the back. I think they certainly get plenty from in-house and from our own supporters, and I think that's enough for them. I think they want to play well and they want to do well.
If you win this weekend, do you start talking about or even thinking about Europe, or is that just left to us?
No, I've never not spoken about it or overly spoken about it. It's the next part of taking care of your own business. If you do well and you win games, then things start coming towards you. Good things start coming towards you. That's just the nature of the game, whether it be you as an individual or whether it be a team. And we've done well at that. I think there's been a clear view of just keep recognising the next challenge. The next one's Leicester. Good side, different manager, trying to change the way they play, the format, etc., etc. Another challenge. So we take that on, and particularly coming back to turf more after 3 away games. I think that's an important thing for the side as well.
Just quickly from me, people have said so many nice things about you. Guy down the road, John Coleman with Accrington, with no
fantastic.
Just wonder what you thought.
Well, the last couple of seasons, I think, or not last season, the season before, and maybe the one before that, I voted for him as manager of the year. I don't mind telling you that. This year it'll be Neil Harris for me as a friend, and I think they're doing a terrific job, and if they do get there, I think it'll be an incredible story. I try and recognise or try and think seriously about it across the divisions, and I think I think there's people out there doing really good jobs, but he's doing a fantastic job. And if they do it, it looks a strong chance that they're going to do it. Then, yeah, again, a great story, I think.
He's been offered a hair weave if they get promoted.
Really?
Are there any incentives if you get Europe? Has people been?
Well, possibly.
I'm not
Possibly,
I
I could take my hair back to its natural colour, which is ginger, because obviously it's strawberry look that I'm sporting now. So I could always do that. There's numerous things: teeth whitening, new face, skin peel, brace. There's so many things to adapt and change.
You're open to offers.
The brace would be good. They're quite expensive, aren't they? And
They are.
the whitening.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone free whitening and brace would be fantastic if anyone's out there. It worked before, if you remember, with a cup when I had cream eggs on it, and I got scream eggs sent through. I tried it the next week, if you remember, with an Aston Martin cup. Didn't happen, but Sailor V had a go.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Sean, the challenge of Leicester then, they've had a sort of mixed bag of results just lately. How do you sort of see their form going towards the end of this season under Claude Puel?
Well, I think the mixed bag of results, there's still been some very good performances in there. They've got a threat, quite obviously, with some key players who can open teams up. Change of manager, change of style, I think. Slightly more method-based, slightly less counter-attack, although they can still do that, of course. It seems to me trying to work on a more possession-based game, and that takes time. So you maybe get them ups and downs in results, but I think they can affect you still in the old Leicester style. I think they're very quick on the break. They still have real quality on the break, and they still, they're when you look at the squad, it's a rounded squad, and they've got some good players. Yeah, again, aside with some players, I think continue to develop into the Premier League, and certainly a good outfit.
Like you say, lots of changes in recent times, lots of changes in personnel over the last couple of years as well, but is it still Vardy and Mahrez who are the biggest threats?
Well, they're the most obvious threats because of what they've done and what they've achieved as individuals and with the club. But I think, like any team at this level, it's not just about one or two players. You've got to have all players who know their jobs, all players who are capable of delivering at this level. So I certainly don't think it's down to just two players, but I think they are very, very good players, and certainly at any given moment can affect a game, either one of them or both of them.
How crucial will this game be in your battle to finish seventh? Is this the most important game from now to the end of the season? Well,
it's hard to judge it because 4 games ago the most important game was just to get another win. We were written off at the end of a bad run. Not written off, but that's the wrong terminology. But people were saying, bad run and questionable, and it was factual. So you have to find your first win, and then you find your first win. Can you find another? Well, we did, and then you've got 3, and then you've got 4, and then all of a sudden the story changes. But that is the marvel of football, how quickly it can change. And now more speaking about this idea of 7th, this idea of European against Leicester being right near us. But for us, the focus remains the same. The next game's the most important, and we've carried on that. I mention it a lot here, but that's what we've carried on. That clear-mindedness has kept us rather on a straight course. To keep focused on the next challenge. Obviously, for myself, with my staff and the board, etc., we still have to have an eye on what happens if. But over the period I've been here, we've kind of done that well to keep that in balance. We're in the background looking at all of this that's gone on, for example, with the training ground, etc., going up from the Championship into the Premier League, down, back up. So there's, of course, bigger picture planning, but the focus for myself and the staff with the team is purely on the next game. So that's what we'll look at.
That said, will there come a time where you think there's a pressure about this European spot?
I don't think so. I've never felt any pressure since I've been here other than to just win games.
How do you ensure that no one else feels it then? Because
well, you can't guarantee it. Each player will have their individual thoughts on it, but they don't look. I don't think we look like a side who's feeling anything other than just keep winning or attempting to win. In a very tough business at this level. And the board, certainly there's no angle to them. They know where we're at as a club. And the chairman as well, so there's no angle to that. We just keep on trying to win games and see where it takes us.
How do you sort of talk to the players about it then? Do you sort of speak to them about this idea of pressure? Because a lot of this season your performances have been so good, there hasn't really been a pressure around because you've not been anywhere near relegation pitches.
No, but there is a pressure when you're not getting wins. We had a tough run of that. There's still a pressure on your next win. Now, it's lightened slightly by the fact we had good points on the table anyway, and a lot of good feeling about what we'd achieved at the beginning of that tough run. But the point is, there is still a demand and a pressure on it. You've still got to come out of that. You've still got to win games. We've seen this season how difficult it can get, like with West Brom. You'd never have called the run they've been on, for me. You'd never have called that with the experience they've got, the players you wouldn't have called that. But it can happen. So I don't think there's no pressure. There's always a pressure of some type on the team. Like I say, slightly softer pressure this time round because of our league position at the time when we hit a tough run. And a belief that the performances eventually would pay us back, and I think they have done. Barring Watford, a bit below par there, but 3 out of the other 4 performances have been very thorough performances, and certainly ones that could win games as we did. So I don't think there's too much pressure on the players. In fact, there's definitely not. The main pressure for me is the performance levels. Keep performing as individuals and as a team, and we'll see what comes.
And it's a different type of pressure, isn't it? Sort of aiming for something like Europe compared to sort of the threat of relegation, I suppose.
Yeah, I think there's so many teams who start the season looking over their shoulder immediately thinking, right, okay, well, the first marker is, and that's because there's a lot on the Premier League, and we haven't lost sight of the fact that's our first marker. Well, our first marker this year was mainly to see if we could better last year, but as it happened last year, it was the 40-point mark that everyone talks about. So if you better that, statistically, you have a very, very strong chance of continuing what you're doing in the Premier League. Now, we did that some weeks ago, which then, of course, brings a bit more freedom, and everyone said, right, okay, well, what's the next one? Well, it still doesn't change anything. Can we find the next win? Once we've done that, can we find another win? And I think that, like I say, it keeps it very simple for me. It keeps it simple for the staff and simple for the players. Thank you.
So I've looked at my notes, which sometimes help.
Are we still on camera, or are you going?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a cut and we start going again?
We're still on camera. No,
I might need makeup in that before we go again.
All right.
Or no, I'm all right.
Go for it, do some hair.
Okay. That's it, done.
Brilliant, fantastic.
It's incredible.
Sunday's a year since you were last given a penalty. I just wondered what your thoughts on that, whether it's a celebration or whether it's a reflection.
Well, a celebration. Celebration of not getting a penalty in a year, a calendar year.
I imagine you've had some shouts.
I would say that's an interesting one. I think we've had a number of occasions. My only worry, and we're referees, and I think they do a great job, is that now that their eyes are tempted to give actual dives and people who go over, or a version of a simulation, whichever word you choose. I'm not getting involved in that one, but I think their eyes are seeing that much of it now, that if you don't go down in that elaborate manner, then you don't get anything. And we've had, I think it's 8 or 9 this season where that's happened, where there's been no actual, diving, not diving as in literally, but, the body language suggests it's all a bit elaborate and a bit theatre-like. There's been none of that, and yet we haven't got a penalty. So I do wonder whether if we had a bit more of that, then you would get a penalty. Not because the referees are good, bad, or indifferent, just because I think their eyes are seeing that so much that you presume that that's going to happen when contact is made. But if you look at our players, they tend to not do that, and I don't mind that. I don't really want that to change. We'll see. We'll see if it, who knows? We might have a run of penalties. You can never define it. But I think a year without a penalty is very unusual in modern football, the amount of penalties that are given. And the amount that have been given to teams this season. So I think it's very unusual to go a whole year without being given a penalty.
Do you remember who the taker is, Sean?
Danny Ings. Oh, you could have left it there. It was a magic moment. It was a jovial moment. It was on the bang, there, cut, boom.
Would be tempted to encourage your players to not dive, but make it clear.
No, I've tried to be clear all the way through my opinions on this, and that is gamesmanship is clever play almost, but there's a fine but important line between gamesmanship and absolute cheating. That's my worry about the game. Gamesmanship has always been there forever. We knew certain players. I was a centre half, and I knew certain players who would go down. I knew certain players who were clever, especially in the box, obviously. But usually in the era that I played in, if you dived, your own players would have a go at you. They'd sort that out, make no mistake. They'd go, no, that's not what we're having. We're not having that. And the opposition certainly would. Whereas if it's gamesmanship and you clip someone, that's always been there. So it's important to remember that, because I'm quite strong on my views about what I call cheating, not simulation. It's just cheating. There's a difference. I'm not on about clever play. I'm not on about gamesmanship. But when someone hits someone here and their legs tumble underneath them, I can't accept that. That can't be in the game, in my opinion. So it's really important to stress that. Clever play, a clip across the ankles, you go down, that's a penalty. Or, well, I'm using penalties as an example. But when you see it all across the pitch, and this season I've seen centre halves diving. the union of centre-halves will be turning from my area. They'll be going, oh, really? You know, and I think that's where it's gone a bit too far, and I think that's where it needs, in my opinion, it needs looking at, and it shouldn't just be the decisions as it is now in the box. It should be all over the pitch, because once it goes, it will be gone. I think I was interested actually in the Man City game the other night. I was very interested in the referee. Forget about good, bad, and different. He didn't give a lot. He didn't give a lot of them things that we see a lot in the Premier League, where there's a challenge, someone goes down, it's given. He didn't really give that much of that, which was interesting, I thought.
What was your opinion on yesterday, Michael?
I didn't see it. I was with our chairman last night. So I was having dinner with our chairman. I've obviously heard about it, but it's been a mad couple of nights, I know that, in football. So I saw the night before, but last night I'm waiting to see all the clips from that one.